Would you sacrifice your entire collection for one book? I've come this close a few times to winning a book that would have forced me to sell most or all of my collection. Here's the first of 6 collection killers. In 2014 on ComicConnect, an amazing copy of Fantastic Four #1 popped up. I bid $65,000 on the book that ushered in the modern Marvel Universe. At the time, I placed the fair market value of this high-grade beauty at about $100,000. After all, only 11 copies are at 9.0 and only 8 are higher than that. To my surprise, I only missed out by a few $1,000s. It ended up selling for $73,000. At the end of this video, I'll take a look back at Fantastic Four #1 and see what it would be worth today. And I'll also do so for the other collection killers as well. By losing out on the auction, did I dodge a bullet or did I miss my gravy train? Next up, we've got Startling Comics #49 at a 9.6 grade. For sci-fi fans, it doesn't get much better than this Alex Schomburg airbrush cover. Many people believe this is the robot that inspired Bender. But this isn't just any old copy, it's tied for the highest ever graded, and it's from the famed Mile High collection. Usually I'm disciplined when it comes to putting bids on comic books. But in this case, I threw self-restraint out the window because this book pressed all my pleasure buttons. My rational brain placed the fair market value of this book back in 2016 in the $60,000 to $70,000 range. But I got into a bidding war at Heritage Auctions. Alas, my final bid of $96,000 didn't hold up, but it took 6 digits to bring me down. Detective Comics 31 at a 4.5. Speaking of classic covers, this is about as good as it gets. It's the 3rd cover appearance of Batman, and the cover brings grown men to their knees. This is the quintessential pre-Robin Dark Knight cover, and serious collectors will pay through the nose for a good-looking copy. The problem is hard to find one that presents well. This one, however, is a beauty. At first blush, it looks like a 6.0 or a 6.5. But if you look a little bit closer, you can see a little bit of a water stain at the top part of the front cover. And if you flip it over, you can see quite a bit more water staining. This defect brings down the grade a notch or two. I was hoping to snag it for about $60K, but once again got into a bidding war. In $1,000 increments, other bidders and I blasted through $50K. We went through $60K, $70K, $80K, and then it's back and forth, I think, between one dude and me. $80, $81, $82, $83, $84, and then I put a bid in of $85K, and I'm sweating bullets here because I'm like, I don't know how much higher I can go. My opponent put in $86K. They just lost this one, the underbidder, once again. This is the point where we're just starting to heat up. The next 3 books, if I would have won them, would have caused me to sell my entire collection. By the way, if you enjoy this content, help this video get 100 likes. And if you have ever sold a big part of your collection or all of your collection for one book, let us know in the comment section below. In 2014, a monster book came up for auction at ComicConnect. I'm talking about Flash Comics #1 from 1940, which features the first appearance of Flash and Hawkman. The grade, a 9.2, just wow. It is the only book in 9.2, and there's only one copy that's higher. My analysis put the fair market value of this book at that time at about $200,000. On a wing and a prayer, I put a bid of $152,000 in. I was closer than I thought, as this well-preserved treasure sold for $182,000. This next one is, well, hard for me to talk about. It still haunts me to this day. It's Suspense Comics #3, and if you're lucky enough to see a copy, it's usually going to look like this. Of the few dozen copies known to exist, the vast majority of them are in really low grade. And then this miracle popped up on Heritage Auctions. It's a 9.0 copy, and the pedigree is from Pennsylvania. As an obsessed fan, I didn't want this book. I needed it. My rational brain placed the value of the book at about $125,000. But then my lizard brain took over. In the fog of bidding war, the price passed $100,000, $110K, $120, $130, $140, $150, and I am still in the mix, $160. And then there I am, standing atop all the bidders at $167,000, and I believe I'm going to take it. And then somebody swoops in there, or should I say slithers in there like a snake, and puts in a cut bid of 173,000. My lizard brain was gone. I thought, I just can't cover this much money for this book, and I had to let it go. I also came pretty close to winning the most prized comic book in the hobby. Back in 2013, ComicConnect debuted a low grade 1.5 copy of Action Comics #1, which of course is the first appearance of Superman. It wasn't just any ordinary copy though, it came with quite the backstory. It was found in a wall of a house that was built in 1938. The most valuable comic book in the world had been serving as insulation for decades. After all this, two family members in an argument almost ripped the back cover in half. Fortunately, the book was salvaged and brought to auction. At the time, I thought the fair market value of the book was about 135,000, and I thought, hey, let me throw my hat in the ring. This time I was close, but there were a few people who bid on top of me, and it ended up selling for 175,000. Okay, let's go all the way back and see how much these books would be worth today. As you may recall, Fantastic Four #1 at a 9.0 sold for $73,000 back in 2014. A copy in the same grade just sold in June 2022 for $420,000. So the total appreciation would have been approximately 476%. In this case, I missed my gravy train. Let's go on to Startling 49 9.6 back in 2016. It sold for $102,000. Another 9.6 copy, also pedigreed from the Promise Collection, sold in June 2021 for $132,000. So that's pretty similar. The total appreciation would have been 29%. It might be a little bit higher because this book has gotten somewhat hotter in the last year. So whether that's 29 or 40%, that's not that good given how hot the comic book market has been the last 5 or 6 years or so. So in this case, I actually dodged a bullet. Let's go to old Tech 31 at the 4.5. It sold for $86,000 back in March of 2015. It will sell for about $200,000 today. That's 133% appreciation, which might be a little low, but not bad. So I'll call that par for the course. Now on to Flash 1 9.2. It sold for $182,000 back in 2014. From the data and extrapolating, I think $1 million plus is a reasonable estimate for this book today. That would have been a 449% appreciation. Again, missed that gravy train. All right, I just hate even talking about this book, but it's Suspense 3 9.0. Sold for $173,000 back in 2015. I think $750,000 or higher would be a reasonable estimate for this book. That would be a 334% appreciation. Once again, I missed my gravy train. And finally, Action Comics #1 at a 1.5. The price when I whiffed was $175,000 back in 2013. These days, this book has been selling for about $500,000 a point. This book would sell for about $750,000 today, or a 329% increase. Once again, missed the gravy train. Speaking of Action Comics #1, did you know that Nicolas Cage once owned one of the nicest copies in the world, and that book was stolen from him? It's one of the most bizarre stories that I've ever heard, and if you want to learn more about this story, check out this video. Thanks so much for hanging with me. If you love the content, consider subscribing, and I hope to see you around real soon.